He is
That's a
such
good
a
one.
character. He is such a character. That is for sure. Well, good afternoon, everybody. This is the last week in mortgage today. We're on here about a minute early. We're going to let people flow in here. So give us like 30 seconds or so and we'll get started. Yeah. What title are you going to give yourself, Larry?
Boy, that's a tough one to compete
Which
with.
agency do you want to
That's
choose?
well, the CFPB is Supreme Court today talking about funding. They're going to be approved for funding, so maybe I should come up with something that has the acronym or the initials of CFPB and come up with Cook, Fun. Boy, P. I don't know, but it's tough to compete with Mike.
Play,
Play, yeah, tough
play,
to compete with Mike. He's creative.
baseball. Baseball. It's baseball season now. The end of the year. We'll
End of the
see
year playoffs.
how the
Yes.
Twins do. They've not won a game in playoffs for I think it's like 4 or 5 years, or something like that.
Wow.
Not one game. So
It
we'll
beats
see
the Tigers.
how it goes. Yeah.
Beats the
Well,
Tigers.
they always make it this far and then something always seems to happen. So
Hmm.
anyway, we'll get started here. This is the last week in mortgage today. Thanks for joining us today, everybody. Appreciate you seeing there. As always, we want this to be an interactive conversation with you. If you want to say something, raise your hand and I'm sure Amy will let you get into chat. We did a little bit of that last week, and she's a pro at it. So we will get started here. I'm so pleased today that I have Larry Bsharah, who is the president of John Adams Mortgage, with me. Larry, thanks for doing this.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. It's always a lot of fun.
It usually is. So let's kind of get at it. But before we really start, you guys have been part of TMC since August of 2019. Seems kind of impossible that it's been 4 years already, but time just flies.
It does fly.
And so I would love it if at the beginning of this, just so people who are on here, have an appreciation for what your business is, if you can just
Mhm.
share a little bit about John Adams Mortgage and kind of what your structure is.
Sure. Thank you. So we are a third generation family owned mortgage company. We're owned by a real estate company. And the fourth generation has started, which is always it's always important for me to say because it's very difficult to get through two and three generations, and our fourth generation has started. So that's always a nice little feature of our company. And in addition to being a real estate owned mortgage company, we also started a few years ago a more traditional branch style uh, um, division of our company, which is the Total Home Lending brand that you see behind me. So we kind of have the best of both worlds. We have individual branches out there, and then we have loan officers that cover our real estate offices. Yes.
Some of these conversations to talk about kind of like both of those scenarios today. So appreciate that.
Yep.
Made it through over the weekend, Saturday, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. I think it was on Saturday. The government shutdown was like kicked down the road a little bit with a continuing resolution until November 17th, which really is like 6 weeks time. So hopefully people continue working on those initiatives and we don't have this like raise its ugly head again in 5 weeks.
Yeah,
But
I think Biden signed it at 11:45 or something like that that night. But the biggest thing, I think Ives was still going to be uh, available for transcripts and things, and I would assume that's going to be the case if they shut down in a few weeks. But the biggest thing was the national flood to keep that going and to extend that. That's the really important piece of it, especially with the weather out there right now.
yeah, we're kind of like right at like bad timing to have that like renew right when it does, I think, because I think isn't it the start of the hurricane season
Hurricane.
when we start
Yeah.
to see a lot of those things. So there was a bill, a $16 billion disaster aid bill, which was included in that. So I think the winners the winners in all of this probably were the American people that didn't get
Sure.
furloughed. Um,
Yes, for absolutely. Because there's a lot of, I mean, between um strikes, UAW strikes and other, there's a lot of employee
control.
challenges out there. And I'm very happy that they weren't furloughed.
Yeah,
Yes.
you're kind of in the middle of some of those.
Oh yeah,
Up
right in
there.
Detroit area.
Yeah,
Yes.
you have a few of them.
We have their Blue Cross Blue Shield. There's a strike going on there. UAW. I think we're up to 15 plants that are shut down locally here in Michigan, plus others throughout the country. Um, and you drive past GM headquarters, or at least I do, drive past GM headquarters all the time, and there's picketers and strike, it's real life stuff, right before our eyes.
Yeah, it is. The thing that we spend quite a bit of time at the airport, not necessarily even traveling. I have a child who absolutely loves to go to our airport viewing area and watch planes take off and land, which
Oh,
in Minneapolis, they have a fabulous one. But
yes.
one of the things that we've noticed is it used to be it was very consistent that you would see planes go in and out. And now you see planes start to go out and then they park a little bit. Well, I've been told from the air traffic group that we follow is some of that is the air traffic controllers are kind of trying to slow down things
Oh,
a little bit because they're in contract negotiations, have been for a long time apparently as well.
wow.
But I think there's like a lot of that going on in our world today. And hopefully our Congress members, who kind of like have learned, I don't know, learned a lesson. That's not the right term, but they'll get on board with averting a shutdown completely in 5 weeks. I think that's what we
I
all
hope so. Yes,
all
I hope
are
so.
hoping for. Let's get started though in talking about change topics a little bit. We received a notification from one of our lender members this week that they were questioning whether other people had started seeing a change in buyers being held for real estate commissions. And it's like that was the first that we had heard of it. But typically, if we have someone kind of talking about it, then that means there are more out there. We just haven't heard it yet. So you and I were talking a little bit before the show started today that there are some changes that you're kind of seeing happening there. So I would love it if you
Yeah.
would just share kind of your impressions of what's happening there and what you think we should be on the watch for, I guess.
Yeah. So it started with an antitrust lawsuit against Anywhere Realty and Remax, both of which settled. Anywhere, I think, was 80 or no, 60 some million. Remax was 83 million as a settlement. And the lawsuit, the class action lawsuit, revolves around antitrust and commissions and directing commissions to buyers agents or sellers agents. So what some markets are doing, we haven't seen it directly here yet, but what some markets are doing is pushing those commissions onto the buyer, which to me it has many problems because or challenges, all of which we could work around. But the bottom line is it creates a major affordability issue for buyers because you're going to do one of two things. You're going to finance that in. So if you have an X number of a dollar house, $300,000 house, and you're adding 2.5% on top of that, now you're at potentially 306,000 or more. So you could have appraisal issues. You have first-time buyers you're buying, putting 3% down, or a state bond program with 1% down in some cases, and you're asking them to pay an additional 2 to 3% or financing that into the home. So that creates some real challenges. Of course, the other piece of that is if you make it a seller cost, if it becomes the norm to have buyers pay commission, and you make it a seller concession or a seller cost, now you have potentially you run up against max lender credits depending on the program. So all of it falls onto the buyer as a negative, and it worsens affordability in a time period where that's the last thing we need, is to worsen affordability or make it more expensive with the higher rates. The other thing, and I haven't really thought this through to see if it's a real problem or how we could work around this. If a buyer doesn't have the ability to pay commission, maybe he or she goes into transactions more often with not supported by an agent. So they are directly going to the listing agent, who may or may not have a contract with the seller. So that is a buyer going to get the best representation, in what falls on the lender to help guide that? Then that becomes another problem. So I'm getting a little bit far ahead here, but all of it doesn't feel good when you're pushing that onto the buyer.
Reading about this, the first thing that, came to my mind, right, wrong, or otherwise, was the fact that the environment that we're in right now and what people are hoping to happen is that people that are in larger homes that probably have a lot of equity and a 2.5% interest rate, that they get to some point where they start to sell, and some of these first-time home buyers find more affordable homes that they can move into. So you're like, buyer's going to pay for it. Well, that's the person that's trying to desperately qualify, that's having challenges to qualify, and they're paying something that traditionally the seller is paid. And in the instance that we may find in our environment, the sellers are the ones that are downsizing. Probably people like my age, that's probably what's going to happen. They're the people that maybe can absorb that a little bit easier than the people that are buying. So it's kind of like, when I first read this, it's just like, that's just like another barrier
Yes.
for our first time home buyers to have to like jump over to get into a home. And so that's kind of the first thing that I thought of when I was reading it.
Yeah, there's no doubt. There's no doubt that's the biggest challenge.
Yeah. And so when I was reading this, I also, and I don't know if this is the case everywhere, but in the New England piece of this, it sounded like, there was some concern there about having to pay X number of dollars in a fee to an agent in order for it to be considered in the multiple listing service. Is that something that is true everywhere,
Yeah.
or?
No, this is still relatively new. So what I heard that some MLSs are could be requiring is to put the fee. Right now it's, say it's 6% commission, which I don't know if it really is. It's more like 5.5%, but whatever the percentage, 6% commission. They're going to, I think, start splitting that up on requiring that on the MLS to where you are going to say what somebody's willing to pay. So to me, it's still relatively new, so I'm not completely sure on that piece of it, on the New England piece. But it's going to create more double dips, I think, for listing agents too. So maybe they're willing to pay 2% to the buyer's agent, but maybe you have a listing agent who has 4% in total, so it's going to save 1%, but you have to deal with one agent, so I don't know if you're getting the best representation. So there's still a lot to weed through and go through, but something definitely we'll keep an eye on. I think the NBA put out something a day or so ago, and they're basically monitoring it for now, and trying to see where it goes before they start to approach the GSEs.
Yeah, so that was the last question that I kind of had for you. But before I say that, I would love it if people would pop in the chat if you've seen it in your market and kind of where you're at in the United States, if you've seen any of this activity going on. Good information for us to have here. As we kind of monitor this and see this happening in, potentially in other places, it usually starts one place and then it kind of, how it is, the creep of it all. It kind of spreads. who's the best person from like an advocacy standpoint that people, if they want to reach out to somebody, who's their best person to reach out to?
Oh, I would say if you're a member of the MBA, I would say the MBA. I would say your local lending associations. Like for us, it's the Michigan Mortgage Lenders, so the MMLA. So I would definitely start with them because for this, especially based on how it started, it's very localized. Like again, for us, we're part of a real estate company, and we've heard of it and are reading everything on it, but it's not in our market yet. I know it's happening in Chicago and some other markets. So I would say start with your local MMLA or MMLA, excuse me, your local lending association like the MMLA and in the MBA as well.
The MMLA, if anybody's on here and is from Michigan and is not part of it, it is an awesome association.
Yes, it is.
Part of, I'll just get that one out there. Okay, that's great information. Really appreciate your perspective on that. This week also, seeing it in Chicago. Yeah, we got it. The person that we got it, the information from, was also in the Midwest. So
Oh,
it's not usual that trends start in the
Midwest
Midwest,
is
is it?
first time buyer heaven. I can't believe we're seeing it here in
No,
the Midwest.
I know. There must be somebody trying to like capitalize on that somewhere, I think. But in the news also this week is information that I just thought was, I'm always interested in what's going on there and out there and new. And, New York has always been seen as one of the top real estate, and it still is, housing markets in the United States. But Florida topped New York in becoming the second most valuable US housing market. There were many things related to that I thought kind of were surprising. Number one, there's a lot of insurance issues in housing in Florida. Not so many of those disaster related things in New York. I read an article this morning that 7 of the top 10 overvalued housing markets are in Florida as well. And it just seemed like such kind of an unusual combination of things. So if anybody on the call is in Florida, and you could share kind of your perspective on that, greatly appreciated. And we just love to hear, kind of housing markets are not all created equal right now. So we'd kind of love to hear, your perspective on that, Larry.
Well, touching on your insurance piece, Florida, California, you have Allstate, State Farm, and others pulling out, which has to eventually impact values of homes. Because if you're going to pay more for insurance, and homes are going to be sitting longer or not potentially selling for what you feel it is because of high insurance or hurricane insurance, premium dollars, that will definitely impact Florida and California. I guess I'm not totally surprised. I mean, there's a lot of people in Florida. There's a lot of people in New York too, but a lot of housing. So
it made me wonder whether part of it was because, although in New York, that's where a lot of employers are calling people back in
yeah,
to work. It made me wonder whether there was some sort of like a lot of people had moved to where they wanted to live when they could work remotely, and that kind of like triggered some of maybe the downfall, or lesser in New York and more in Florida. I don't know. You think that has anything at all to do with
that
it?
has to have something to do with it. Also, so many people live in New Jersey and Connecticut, and
True.
take
The
the train in. I saw something too where if you drive into New York from New Jersey, they're charging you more to cross into New York. Just an astronomical number. So New York, New Jersey, that's an interesting area to me. I love New York. I love the Manhattan area, but I would have a difficult time living there with a family. But it's a great spot. But I could see Florida being number overtaking New York for sure. You
Yeah.
know, everybody from Michigan's moving there. So
Are they?
yeah,
Everybody from Minnesota goes there in the winter, and we're
yeah,
almost at that point. So give it another 3 months or so, and there's a bunch of snowbirds that happen to end up down there as well. Interesting though that there's now it's almost like it's a toll or a tax on New Jersey folks going into New York. I wonder
yes.
if that's how they're recouping some of their
I think that's definitely the case.
losses in the downtown. I'll have to check that one out. Another thing that I saw in the news this week, and just, I love to look at how things are written and different people's perspectives because an article can definitely be kind of like shifted one way or the other. It's like you can always make the numbers work how you want them to look, I think sometimes. And so there was an article and it talked about all of the anxiety in which I agree people are anxious about what's going on. That's like a given, especially people that are in the industry. But it was talked about all of the anxiety and all the different pieces or components of the mortgage space and how what they were hearing today is a lot like what they heard prior to the mortgage meltdown, the Great Recession,
Mm.
whatever you want to call that 2007, 2008 timeframe in there. And I have like a completely different view of that. So I was wanting to get your view and see if you and I were maybe a little bit being in the industry, maybe a little bit more in sync of how we feel about a statement like that.
Yeah, I think people forget a lot. You know, 2007 and 8 was a mortgage crisis. I mean, we had all the different crazy programs um, just a lot of different ways to get into a home. It was very easy at that point in time, and neg am, and so today is totally different. We have higher rates, we have very strong employment, we have a strong economy. Although you're starting to see a little weakness in savings, and although jobs continue to be very strong, there's other areas of weakness. But no, it's totally different. I think our quality today on the mortgage side is as strong as it's ever been. Um, Foreclosures were the real problem in 2007 and 8. So completely different challenges and issues, and no, I think there's no correlation at all between the two.
Yeah, that's exactly what I felt. I
Yeah,
felt like this is someone just trying to make this seem like a really devastating time and maybe stir the pot a little bit um,
maybe.
about things. I see it as two completely separate things.
Was this a non-mortgage, non-banking
Um,
person?
it
Yeah.
was,
Okay.
yeah, it was for sure. And I think back to 2007, 2008, and I think everybody in the industry knew there were some things that needed to stop happening, right? And you
Hmm.
could almost see the train a coming. It was
Yeah.
like this is not 125%, you know, of the price of the home is not a good loan value to have. I think
Right.
we all we all saw those things happening. And
Yes.
there were maybe some people even in our industry that we wished would like not be in the industry. I see this time frame as more mortgage lending has really changed a lot. We've had a lot of regulation.
Yeah,
Um,
there's a lot more regulation now today. You're correct. I think it's I've heard it stated this way, and I think it might be a little true. It's almost like the start of a new chapter of how we have to look at things and approach things. And that's time will tell if that is the case, but I do think that is a good way to put it. We're not going to see 3% rates. We're not going to maybe see 4% rates. Five would be good. I think that'll help create more inventory, but it's not going to. We're not going to have a flood of homes for sale at fives, but it will definitely create more inventory. We have to remain professional, and we have to remain patient and just be there for our council, our customers, and just wait for the circle of life to happen. And, it's marriage, divorce, babies, the rest go, that I think there's 7 things that people talk
Yeah,
about.
the 7 Ds, as
7 Ds, yeah,
he always
babies, I
says,
should say
yeah.
diapers, but yeah, I think that, people are staying in homes longer. Obviously, it used to be every 5 to 7 years. I think we're north of 10 years now where people stay in homes, and maybe this is going to create it to be even longer than that, maybe 12 years, 13 years, because of interest rates. But we got to stick it out because people still need us. People still need financing. It's just going to be different. That's all.
Yeah, and we were talking before the show started about what is like normal. I mean, what do you consider normal anymore? I definitely think nothing in our history is going to tell us what that, new normal is going to be in the mortgage space, because I feel like this is just something that's totally different. Anything that anybody tried to predict about what has happened essentially hasn't really panned out.
Everybody's been wrong. Everybody's been wrong.
Yeah.
So it's
So yeah, we were talking about some of those things, and like, what do you want for like your new normal? Is it volume at a certain spot? Is it being profitable? Is it, knowing that you've got the happiest customers on the face of the earth? What is that new normal? And I think that normal is different for everybody. I don't think it's necessarily a standard
well, I think
thing, or it's a combination.
it's a common, but I think the one commonality between all of your members and everywhere else is profitability is important. But there's, everybody has a number 2, whatever that might be, and whether it's company culture or happy, employee happiness, or great survey scores. You're right. Everybody has something different, and that's for everybody to decide. But I think to manage your business appropriately right now and make really tough decisions in some cases, and unemotional decisions, is really important for everybody, because you're going to have to continue to make those decisions, those tough decisions. They're not over.
I definitely see, as time has went on, and it's, been a little bit longer than what, people I think initially thought it would be. It doesn't get any easier. It gets a little bit harder. And so it's a good time. I mean, it's been great for us. We've been able to help a lot of people. For sure. But it's a great time to kind of lean on each other and lean on things like, like TMC, because you're going to find that you're not alone. You have other people in very similar situations. And I think the more that people can help each other out in this environment, definitely the better.
Yep.
In that same article that was talking about don't hold your breath for things to change, they did interview David Stevens and a couple of other people, and they talked about the 26 to 34-year-old market are the, would-be buyers that are maybe in play, and that none of the people interviewed for this article anticipated that home prices were going to fall. And with very differing reasons, but I know you don't like to make predictions. You're kind of like a stay in the moment guy.
Yeah, I'm like, done with predictions.
Where we are and no predictions. Do you think because of where supply is right now, and with people not moving as actively as they are, do you think that those housing prices do kind of tend to stay, up around where they're at? Or
I do, for the most part, with the exception of, and this is like, an obvious statement here, but if you're listing your home too high, then yeah, you're going to see that come down a little bit, but that's not a value coming down. A value coming down is you paid $400,000 today, and it's today worth $350,000. So some people have to make sure they're using the right definition of values coming down. That $400,000 home, if you have it listed for $500,000 today, if you have to list it for 480 because there's nobody looking, that's not a value coming down. It just means you overlisted it.
What somebody was willing to pay for it,
Yeah, right.
so.
So I do, it would take a lot for values to come down in terms of real dollars coming down. We might see a little drop, but it would take a lot for values to come down, which goes to why it's important for buyers to buy today if they can handle today's interest rates and worry about the rate later. I hate the saying, date the rate, marry the house. I hate that saying, but that's really what you have to do is if you can stomach and handle the rate today, you should buy today if there's any homes in your market that you want to buy. So that's really the message, because values, if you're waiting on values to come down, you're gonna be waiting a long time to buy.
Yeah, kind of my thoughts as well. It seemed like that was the same consensus of the group. I do think that there is, at least I'm seeing it here, and I'm primarily in a new construction area in Minnesota, but I am seeing people like throwing a listing out there at way over what maybe they even thought it would sell for, just to see it, and saying, well, if it will sell for this, I'll move. But the minute that they get no activity on it, then pulling it down. So some of that pricing it maybe higher than what it should be in the market is seen. You do see some of that here as well, but I really appreciate you joining me
Is it a
today.
half hour already? Wow.
It has been a half an hour already. I can't believe it. Thanks for joining us,
Thanks for
everyone.
having me. I really appreciate it.
You are so welcome, and you're always welcome to join. We love having you join us because you've got such a great perspective on things. Appreciate everyone else joining us. Of course, this is also published out on YouTube. For those of you who are catching on YouTube, join us in person. It's a lot of fun, and you can share your commentary with us during the show. So we will be back next week at the same time. Thanks again, Larry.
Thanks, Faith. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Take care.